Good morning. I hope you had a nice week. This is Monday. We're going to review the phases and complete the phases of the Civil War, the Cold War, so we can get those done. We have 3 lessons. This is the first one. You'll have another one tomorrow, one on Wednesday, and then we'll have a test on Thursday. And hopefully, I will be back on Monday. That would be the 29th of April. And so I'll be back hopefully then. So let's get into it. Let's go over the facts that there are 7 phases, or historians think there's 7 phases of the Cold War. The 7 phases are broken down into, historians broke the phases down into what they call phases to study the Cold War, because it was a 40-year war. Remember, it started in 1957 and went all the way to 1991, and so it was a long time. So to study it historically, you have to break it down into components so that you can study this component versus that component. They call them phases. Now, we already saw one film on phases. I'm going to go through the first 3 really quick, this first video, and so that you'll get reminded of them so that you can take your test on Thursday. Okay? So the first phase was from 1946 to 1949. Remember, this is the beginning phase, and the Cold War was started between the United States and the Soviet Union, which was at that point the USSR, because of the distrust of the two nations. Truman, which is the president of the United States, did not trust the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was trying to spread communism, and the Stalin, which was the president or dictator of the USSR, didn't trust the United States because we didn't tell them we had the nuclear device that we dropped on Japan. So at the conclusion of the Second World War, the Soviet Union actually formed what they called the Eastern Bloc. That's B-L-O-C, Eastern Bloc, B-L-O-C, by occupying the Eastern European countries like Poland, Belgium, Romania, Hungary, Yugoslavia, and stuff like that. Well, what we did, the United States, was started to try to get rid of communism. So Truman came out with what we called Truman Doctrine. Truman's Doctrine, T-R-U-M-A-N, Doctrine, D-O-C-T-R-I-N, was a program to actually provide military and political aid to any country that would repel or stop Russia from doing what they wanted to do, which was spread communism. So if you didn't want communism, then we would actually, Truman Doctrine would say that then we would support you militarily and economically. And that would begin to work. And the Soviet Union didn't like that, so they formed what they called the Warsaw Pact. War, W-A-R-S-A-W, Pact, P-A-C-T, and that was basically the same coalition of countries that would accept communism. Now, we actually are going to end up forming what we call NATO a little bit later to oppose communism. So that's basically what that's happening. But during the first phase of the Cold War, we actually helped establish the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan was where we would give money to different countries to aid them to fight communism. The money wasn't to fight communism, but if they chose to fight communism, we would give them money to help them get food and stuff like that. So they could take the money they had for food and move it into fighting communism, and that way we're not really fighting, we're not giving them money to fight Russia. We're just giving them money for food and comfort and stuff like that. Although they would take the money for the food, and then they would take other monies and fight Russia, and vice versa. So it's all basically the same, or USSR. Well, they took offense to that, and so they were now 2 conflicting superpowers in the world. At one time, there was only one. Now we have two. One is the United States. The other one is Russia. Okay. Second phase of the Cold War was from 1949 to 1953. Now you're going to have to remember these phases. Okay. Dates. I told you didn't have to, but we're going to have these years. First phase, I'll go over it again, 1946 to 1949. Write that down, Memo. You're going to need that. Okay, so second phase is 1949 to 1953. That's 1949 to 1953. This is where the United States actually established NATO. NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and this was established in 1949. You don't have to need to know that, but that's when it was. And it was to fight communism. During this period of time, phase two, the USSR got the atomic bomb. They tested their first nuclear device, and now we have two world powers with the ability to destroy the world, basically, USSR and the United States. We had spies during this period of time. That's when the most spies were there as well, as you remember. We had a lot of spies spying on them, and they had a lot of spies spying on us. So that's how we were able to do that. The Washington, D.C. recognized the existence of the Republic of China. So this is where China really became a second world power, but it was moving on up the line, and it coming up to what it was today. Also, during phase number two, the Korean War started. The Korean War began, okay? And phase three, 1953 through 1957, treaties began to show up between us and Russia, trying to limit the amount of nuclear devices that each one of us possessed. I personally do not believe that any of these treaties worked. I do not believe that we turned around and said, nah, we're not going to make nuclear weapons because we signed a piece of paper. Neither do I believe that Russia said that we're not going to make but X amount of nuclear weapons because we signed a piece of paper. I think we kept going, and we started what was in this phase is what's called the arms race, ARMS race, arms race, RACE. Okay, because that was something that we needed to get going, apparently, because the Russia is doing their thing and we're doing our thing. During this period of time, we also established 3,300 military bases around the United States, around the world, but they all kind of centered like around Russia, USSR. If you look at the map, picture Russia's in one spot. We had 3,300 military bases around them, all pointing nuclear weapons towards Russia, and they didn't like that. We also assisted 43 different countries in their fight against communism, and America gave military aid and economic aid. That means we gave them weapons and money to fight communism. In 1955, what we did was we actually established a Middle East Defense Organization. That's Middle, M-I-D-D-L-E, East, E-A-S-T, Defense Organization. And this organization was to actually come in and prevent communism from being spread. Before, we were fighting the spread of communism. This organization's main job was to prevent that from happening. I'm not so sure that they did or not, but that was their main job. During this phase also, Russia took and increased their nations in the Warsaw Pact, and they went to from like 1 or 2 to like 6 or 7 or 8 countries, and it was in direct defense of NATO. So the Warsaw Pact said the same thing the NATO Pact said. NATO says if anybody attacks any of these countries, the United States has to come to their aid. The Warsaw Pact says if anybody attacks any of these countries, then the USSR has to come to their aid. All this time, China is sitting over there just growing and growing in power and everything else. So when we get to today, China is a lot bigger world power than USSR. But at this time in history, it's us and the USSR. Okay, so that will end the review of phases 1, 2, and 3. So what I need for you to do now is to participate in a little writing. I need you to get out a piece of paper, and you probably will have a piece of paper. Actually, you're going to get a piece of paper handed out to you at this time. I am going to prepare that. Let me make a note to make sure I do that. Handouts, okay. Handouts. Okay, we will have a handout on the writing assignment each time, and then that way you won't have to go back. This will also have things on it like NATO and Warsaw Pact and some other things that you need to remember for the test on Thursday. I would say, are there any questions? But the only questions I'd get was from someone to say, can I go to the bathroom? So that's up to your teacher there, and I hope you have a great Monday, and I will see you on next Monday, 1 week from today. Okay, get your writing assignment done, the handouts out, and enjoy your day. Bye now.